Okay, lesson 2.5 is percent of change. Our objective is to find the percent of change and the percent of error. A percent of change is a ratio that compares the change in quantity to the original amount. So this is just a little reminder, you're finding the amount of change over the original amount. When you compare the amount of change to the original amount in a ratio, you're finding the percent of change. The percent of change is based on the original amount. So if the original quantity is increased, then it is called a percent of increase. And if the original quantity has decreased, then it is called a percent of decrease. Okay, let's look at some example problems. 1A, in the year 1970, an average price for a gallon of gas was $1.30. In 2010, the average price for a gallon of gas was $2.95. Find the percent of change in the cost of gasoline from 1970 to 2010. Round to the hundredths if necessary. So the way you do this is I always say you take the original minus the new, divide by the original. So negatives don't really matter on these. So if you get a negative number, you just take the absolute value of it. So the original price of gas was $1.30. But now it's $2.95. So you take $1.30 minus $2.95. And you're going to divide that by $1.30 because that's the original price of gasoline as in relation to this problem. So you take 130 minus 295 and that gets you negative 165. But we're just going to use the absolute value, so we're going to do 165 divided by $1.30 because that's the original. When you do that, you get okay, I'll show you what the calculator says. It says 1.26923. I'm going to finish there. Okay, we are talking about the percent of change. So when we're talking about percents, we move our decimal over 2. So this is 126.92%. Or 126 and 92/100ths%. Now, does that make sense as an answer? Yes, because if I take $1.30 plus $1.30, I would get $2.60. So that would be 100% change, and then there's still more on top of that. So 126% change makes absolute sense. A lot of times when some graders see this 1.26923, they are just like, I don't know what to do. So on this, it's very critical, as like on the test and stuff, as part of your answer that you've written it as a percent, you've rounded it. The percent sign makes me know that you understand that this is talking about the percent that it's changing. Yusuf, or something like that, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, bought a DVD recorder for $280. Now it is on sale for $220. Find the percent of change in the price. Round to the nearest hundredth if necessary. So I'm going to take the original and I'm going to subtract the new and I'm going to divide by the original. So 280 divided or minus 220 is 60, and then I divide that by 280, and the calculator would say 0.21428. Oops, 8. Okay, so I'm going to move it over 2 because it's up. We're talking about a percent of change. So we have 21 and 428 thousandths, but it says to round to the nearest hundredth. So the 2, look to the 8. The 8's going to make the 2 become a 3. So it's going to be 21 and 43/100ths%. Okay, here they gave us two problems in one. So it says to find the percent of change from 1922 to 1955. So original amount was $94, or not $94, 94 miles per hour. I wonder if this is how fast planes go. I don't remember the context of this problem. So 94 was 1922 minus 1955 is 128 divided by the original, which is 94. So I take 94 minus 128, and that's going to get me negative 34, but remember we don't really need to worry about negatives on this, so we just write 34, and then we divide by our original, which is 94, and we get 0.3617. We're talking about percent of change, so we're going to take our decimal and make it a percent. When we round, that becomes 36 and 1700%. Circle it, and that's my answer. 1955 to 2010 percent of change. So you take the original, which is 128, minus the newer one, which is 162, divide by the original. And 128 minus 162 gets us, that's funny, gets us negative 34 again. So we write 34 over 128. So now we're starting with a different original. So this is to kind of show you that the original amount greatly affects the percent of change. So when you divide that, you're going to get 0.2656. You're going to move your decimal over 2. You're going to get 26 and 56/100%. Circle it, and that's your answer. Okay, earlier we were finding percent of increase and percent of decrease based on how much things have changed. Now this is the percent of error. So this is how off were you? So this is a guessing game. Suppose you guess there are 300 gumballs in a jar, but there are actually 400. So you have to find the percent of error. How far off were you? So you're going to take the right amount minus what your guess was. So 400 minus 300 is 100. And then you're going to divide by the actual, which is 400. When you divide that, that's going to get you 0.25. And really, you don't need a calculator for this. Zeros cancel out, zeros cancel out. You know that 1/4 is 25/100 as a decimal, and 25/100 as a percent is 25%. So you had a 25% error.